All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live from the 704 once again for episode 274. Yeah, 274 of the 815 exchange. And ladies and gentlemen, what a week. What a weekend. Okay, first, what a weekend. All right, it's officially November, which feels crazy. All right, October went by in a flash. All right, it was a great month though. All right, it was an absolutely historic month for me. Which, if you follow me on my social medias, which obviously can be found because everything you're looking for in this life can be found in my description. You know, also in the outro, timestamps also embedded in the video, also in the description. Then you would know it's been a very historic October for me. Can't lie, a lot of good things. You know, shout out to the Phase Subathon. That was crazy, by the way. I got a shout out to the Phase boys. 7 times 100K is crazy. 7 for 7 is different. But yeah, college football. It was a fraud check week. All right, some of y'all got fraud checked. We're gonna talk about that. That's gonna kick us off. Entertainment. We had a few things dropping. Music, nothing too crazy. Of course, the big story, of course, is the World Series. I was right. I told you. Now, they had me for a second, but I told you. All right, I told you what happened, and I'm going to talk my ish respectfully about the Dodgers and Yamamoto. NFL, good gracious, that early morning slate was absolutely insane. I'm recording this before the end slate has done, so we're going to see if it matched that early slate, because that early slate, the last row of games was absolutely ridiculous. We're going to talk about that. NASCAR, fix your playoff system. We're going to rant about that. So yeah, we got plenty to talk about. As always, remember to like, share, and subscribe if you guys are enjoying the content. But without further ado, let's get to it, all right? CFB, let's warm this up, all right? Let's warm it up real quick, all right? Just warm it up, ease into it. Georgia and Florida, of course, legendary rivalry game. And while Florida played them close, I will give them this, all right? They played them close because Gunnar Stockton played like an absolute fraud. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. He didn't play well, all right? We've had some games where Gunnars look like, okay, that's the 5-star Gunnar Stockton. This was the game that was like, he just doesn't have it. Respectfully, he just doesn't have it. The reason why they won this game, especially at the end of this game, was Chauncey Bowens went off. He went off. Only nine carries in this game, by the way. Had 70 yards, had the go-ahead touchdown. Bowens was dynamite. All right, and especially late for the Bulldogs. He was a damn good dog. We also, all right, in this game, Trey Wilson, I do got to pay my respects here for Florida. Played a very big game for them on that side. DJ Lagway had his moments. But, shout out to Eugene Wilson III, or as we call him, like I said, Trey Wilson. He had 9 receptions, 121 and a touchdown, which was almost matched by Zachariah Branch in his first, was the world's biggest cocktail party? That's the side hyphen nickname for this game. Anyways, in his first Georgia-Florida game, Zach goes for 10, 112. So not too bad either. He was dynamic as well. But like I said, Bowens late, Georgia just making it happen where Florida just didn't have it. Just didn't have it, but that's been a reoccurring case. It was another heartbreaking loss for the Gators in what's been a series and a year of heartbreak. But it was the first week post-Napier. So we'll see. They weren't expected to win this, and they kept it closer than I think a lot of people expected. So credit where credit's due, but UGA does survive the week, and that was important because a lot of y'all didn't. Most notably, Georgia Tech. Keeping in that Georgia rivalry, yeah? Took on NC State, and NC State is one of the most dangerous teams in the country, in my opinion. They have incredible, of all of the teams in the FBS, they might have the most boom and bust potential. A lot of it has to do with CJ, but I think just that team as a whole, they have the talent where it feels like they can almost upset anybody, but they also have the talent and the way they play and their volatility to also just lose to anybody. Like, they can have a letdown against anybody in the country, but they can also almost beat everybody in the country, it seems. And here it was. All right, here it was. Georgia Tech's defense was non-existent. They didn't show up to play. They did not show up on Saturday to play a football game. NC State gets it done here, 48-36 in a shootout. CJ Bailey, gunslinging CJ, goes for 374 and a hat trick. Jaden Scott had 196 in a touchdown. I think 4 different Wolfpack players scored a touchdown rushing in this game. And with all of that success offensively for NC State, which of course was the catalyst and the reason why they won this game, Haynes King, in a losing effort, had 511 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did have that pick, but 511 and 4 touchdowns in a loss. Normally in these letdown games, right, in these upset games, these fraud check games, we talk about, usually it's that quarterback who we may have been elevating a little bit, having a letdown. In this case, Haynes showed up. Haynes showed up, but nobody on that defense. All right, they could have played with cones out there, and they would have gotten more stops against NC State than they did on Saturday. It was disgusting. All right, as a Georgia Tech fan, it had to be an absolutely disgusting, like revolting watch for you to see that go out like that. To see Haynes have to go out like that. But State, like I said, continues to be so hot, so cold. But right here, they were scorching hot. CJ gets it done. That's why a lot of people are so high on him in the future. Texas and Vandy was one of the headlining games of the week. Yet another, recipient of the absolutely stacked SEC this season. And while Vandy had all the momentum in the world, of course, they just took out LSU. Were riding high off of back-to-back wins after losing to Bama in still respectful, fashion. They had only one loss on the season. We're talking college football playoffs, Pivia, of course, talking Heisman. And that all came to a head because Texas, of course, last week got the W, but Arch went out with the potential concussion. And I don't know what it was about getting his bell rung that seems to have fixed Arch Manning. But the Arch Manning, the prince that was promised of college football, he showed up on Saturday in Austin, and we should have known because he set the tone even before what I was about to say. But in the pregame, when you saw him just goofing off, faking like he was going to throw the ball and hitting that grin, we should have known. And we definitely should have known when he turned to the camera while they were about to go out and said, "We're back at the crib." We should have known what type of timing Arch was on, and boy, was he on timing. 25 for 33, 328 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the best game of young Arch Manning's career so far. He was incredible. I got nothing bad to say about Arch in this game. He did exactly what you want your star quarterback to do. You can say what you want about, yada yada. He delivered what had to be done. He did all of the little things that Arch has struggled with throughout the season. He got done in this game. You saw the progress. You saw the talent in this game, and he did it without having to use his legs. He only had one carry. He did it with his arm, and you have to love that as a Longhorn fan to see Arch put in a performance like this. Burke had 2 sacks, but of course, Colin Simmons, good gracious, that forced fumble recovery is all of the reason why he's going to go top 5 probably next year. Anthony Hill Jr. is also still very much so an absolute menace from the linebacking position. Diego Pavia still had 408. All right, he had 408 yards, 4 touchdowns, still did his thing. Eli Stowers, boy, he had a game. 7 receptions, 146, 2 touchdowns. And Vandy made it close at the end. Texas almost gave this game away. All right, make no mistake about it. Vandy had a valiant effort in that fourth quarter where the game looked like it was put to bed. But they made it a little interesting. Texas, I think, let off the gas a little bit too soon, and they almost paid for it. But the Horns do get out in Austin, come back home, get the W. A huge win versus Vandy. Preserve their college football playoff hopes. Vandy, not necessarily on life support, but you're going to have to win out. All right, it sets up a very interesting trail for these two teams as they go down the line here for the rest of the year. Let's keep it in Texas, though. All right, because we're going to Dallas, actually. We're going from Austin to Dallas because SMU took on Miami. And Miami is doing the same thing that Miami does every single year. We've talked about it before. They start off super hot. We start seeing the U is back. They look real good. And then they just completely nosedive. At some point, Miami needs to be able to learn how to take the L and then get better from it. But every time, I talked about it last week, I said Miami hits these highs, they get clipped, and then they lose their mind. They just fumble. They just fall apart. It's like deliberate. It cripples them. And it's happened again. SMU takes them down 26-20. In overtime, Carson Beck, who is just completely, I don't know what mirage or daydream those first 3 weeks were, but they are far from gone. They are very far gone. Very far gone. That is distant past at this point because Beck doesn't look draftable, much less first, second, or third round. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole because he's a bum. He is to quote Herm Edwards, he is who we thought he was. Or was that Dennis Green? Regardless, he is who we thought he was. Carson Beck is who we thought he was. He's a bum. He sucks. Respectfully, he sucks. He don't got it. The boy don't got it. All right? Threw an awful pick, which, to be fair, I'm not going to lie, as a receiver, Malachi messed up there as well. I will say, Malachi Tony, the one thing they tell you to do as a receiver is never on when any type of dig or inside route, do not start to fade up the field. He ran a lazy route as is, I'm going to be honest with you, but he started fading up field, which made the pick look worse than it was. It was a great defensive play, but he faded up field and allowed the defender to cut you off. That will happen every single time, especially at the highest level. You can't do that. Malachi, as much as we've sang his praises, is arguably the best freshman in the country. That was partially on him. All right, that was partially on him. Partially on the decision from back to have not read that, but I digress. He does that, and then that's it. That is all she wrote. KJ had 365 and a touchdown, did his thing. Jordan Hudson was his leading receiver, 11 receptions, 136. Ahmad Moses had a legendary game in SMU lore now. 15 tackles, 2 DFLs, and he had those 2 interceptions of Beck. Really good day there. By the way, JoJo Trader apparently off the leash here. 581 and a touchdown. But yeah, they got to get him and Mally to be able to do their thing at the same time. Too much talent in that receiving corps. But when you got Carson Beck at quarterback, that makes things difficult, I digress. It really, really does. SEC, this is not, again, oh God, I'm never going to get used to it. But yeah, staying in the SEC, another ranked matchup. Oklahoma needed this. Good God, they needed this. They needed some type of get back, like get their respect back. All right, because everybody was like, yeah, we're done with the Sooners. All right, I was like, well, I'm done with the Sooners. All right, but yeah, they completely fraud check the Vols here and get it done in a very good game, by the way. Oklahoma gets it done 33-27. John Mateer did not play a great game by any means, but he did what he had to do. Like I said, he's got that dog. I don't know if he's necessarily a good quarterback, but he's got that dog. All right, he does have that dog. He got the dagger here, though. Let's be real. Xavier Robinson was the reason why this offense did what they did in this game. He had 115 and a touchdown and had the 46 yards that set up Mateer's 1 yard, carry to get into the box. But Joey Aguilar, this was the good Joey and the bad Joey. All right, he had 393, good Joey. 3 touchdowns, good Joey. He had 2 costly interceptions. 2 very, very costly interceptions in this game that came back to haunt the Tennessee Volunteers. And yeah, they take, again, I didn't think Tennessee was really that serious. I think they're a good team. I don't know if they're a playoff team. And I think a loss like this to Oklahoma, who is another team where I don't know if they're a playoff team. I think they're solid enough, but they're not really a playoff team. And I think this was a good kind of parameter type game. But Oklahoma, gets a little hope back. Big win here against Tennessee. Tennessee, it's pretty much done. Let's be real. It's over. But we will see. All right, we will see. Utah makes a statement. All right, they made an absolute statement against Cincinnati. They beat the brakes off these boys. 45-14, smoked them. Wayshawn Parker had 104 and a touchdown. Ryan Davis had 132 and a tutty. It was just absolute beatdown. Absolute beatdown. I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm going to still pop up the photo, but Utah beat the brakes off these boys. There's no other way to put it. They embarrassed Cincinnati. Straight up embarrassed them. Let's keep it rolling, though. All right, let's keep it rolling and round up this college football segment. UVA took care of California, 31-21. JKS did not play a good game. And Virginia, once again, as we talked about the entire year, just once again found some type of way to win the game. All right, just absolute, somewhat disgusting football, but they win. They win. They find ways to win. Ohio State did exactly what they were expected to do against Penn State. This, again, used to be a marquee matchup. This would be one of our featured matchups, yada, 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 but they just don't got it. Yeah, they don't got it no more. All right, they just stay there. This is going to be a rough period. Let's just put it like that. It's going to be a rough period for Penn State. However, Julian Sayin, Heisman candidacy in full bloom. J.J. Smith, Jeremiah, my. That catch was absolutely ridiculous. Wide receiver 1 next year. Carnell Tate, wide receiver 1 this year. That's looking like a special trio. Somebody, some are saying Burrow, Jefferson, Chase, which is very high praise. All right, very, very high praise. I'm not going to put them there yet. I'm not putting Sayin anywhere near Burrow yet, certainly. But Ohio State looks like the best team in the country. So we will see. Let's keep it rolling. You know what? Let's go entertainment. All right, let's do a really quick entertainment segment, and then we'll talk World Series, right? And then we'll do the whole cut, whole thing, yada, yada. EssDeeKid has been, I'm not going to lie, Jason the Ween put me on during the subathon, and I have been listening to him nonstop the past couple weeks. He dropped Century, which was an absolute another banger. Yeah, there's a reason why he's got the hype right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's a reason, a very, very firm, good reason why EssDeeKid has all of the hype in the world right now. And is one of the biggest coming out of Britain. And yeah, Century is another very, very good example of why that is currently happening. 2 albums dropped by 2 artists that have dropped more than one album this year. Let's just put it like that. We've got Heels Have Eyes 3 from Westside Gunn, which I was like, do I really want to? I'm almost tapped out of Westside. I like Westside. Y'all know I like Westside. Man, he's dropped a lot this year. He really has dropped a lot. He just came out of the playlist. Now he's back. I was like, I'm almost tired of the sound. But Heels Eyes, it was really good. HHE3 was really, really good. Free Rollies kicked it off with Butch, and that really set the tone. That ends up being one of my favorites. Eddie Bauer was short, but also very good. I think this is a really good project. It was a really, really good project. Refreshed me on West Side. And I'm not going to say it's my favorite of the three. I need to let it digest some more. But it's a very, very strong addition to the trilogy. Shout out to West Side. Whole project gets my co-sign. Haunted by Fame by Offset, I feel like was a little unnecessary. There was some good stuff. Fashion Icon hit some of the early. There was also some absolute blatant misses. I get it though. He's trying to address, he's being what an artist is. He's releasing music. I can't, hate, but it was okay. All right, it was okay. There's some good stuff if you listen to it, but there's also some stuff where it's like, okay, bro. It almost felt like it was unnecessary, almost like Deluxe to what he dropped a couple weeks ago. But I digress. Fashion Icon hit though. Hunted by Fame, Offset. Go listen to it. I'll let you form your own cosign. All right, I won't say yes or no. You go form your own opinion on that one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about it. World Series, MLB. All right, it has come to a close. The MLB season is over, and I told you from game one. I told you before game one. I may have even told you last year when they won, but the Los Angeles Dodgers have won the World Series. Some people surprised. Amazingly, some people surprised. Not to mine. Okay, not to mine. I said in the intro, I'm going to talk my ish. All right. I knew this was coming. It was the most obvious conclusion. This is a super team. This is a super team in baseball. They have limitless funds, and they have a collection of the absolute best players in the world at their positions. This was a no-brainer, in my opinion. But it did conclude with a great fight against Toronto in one of the greatest, I'm going to be honest, World Series we've ever seen. Multiple extra inning games, chaotic finishes, iconic performances on both sides. It had everything. Honestly, this World Series had everything. We saw great viewership as well for those media heads. It was a really, really, really good World Series, and Toronto put up a good fight, and honestly, had me thinking they could possibly pull it off here in Game 7. Unfortunately, it was not to be. All right, it was not to be for the sixth side as they were up. Oh my gosh, they were up 4-2. 8th inning. Give up the one to Muncy. Now it's 4-3. Not the end of the world. They get out of it. Your Savage gets out of it. Who had a great playoff run as well, the rookie did. 9th inning comes. All you got to do is close the show. You win. You pull off the upset. You bring the World Series home to Toronto. And they could not finish the job. Rojas hits it in the 9th, brings life. I'm over here hosting a party. Half of us are up here watching it, going nuts. Losing our minds watching Rojas go yard there. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to extras. We go to extras. And Yoshinobu Yamamoto is in the game. Vlad on base. This happened multiple times, by the way. Vlad gets on base. Whoever gets on base. Ernie gets on base. And it looks like they are dead to rights. The Dodgers are about to give it up. Blue Jays are walking this off. It's over. And somehow, every single time Yamamoto had an answer. For some people, the lights get too bright. Like Ohtani did a terrible job starting as much as we love him and he's the best player in the world. The lights felt like they were too bright or he was just too tired pitching-wise. He didn't have it. And he really didn't do too much hitting-wise. Or offensively, should I say, in this game. And I'm not saying he's not a big-time player. I won't say that about Ohtani. But, for some players, the lights are too bright. For Yamamoto, the lights weren't bright enough. Okay? They weren't bright enough. This was academic for him. Okay? He needed the highest of pressure for him to become the best in the world. And that's what he was. All throughout this series and really throughout this entire playoff run for the Dodgers, Yoshinobu Yamamoto made a statement as quite possibly the best pitcher on earth. Like I said last week, I said we needed to give him his flowers. Do you understand it now? He is your World Series MVP with nearly 4 wins. He almost had 4 wins in a World. You know how insane that is? A pitcher getting 4 wins in a World Series? It's bananas. That's crazy. He had 3, which is crazy as is. It was an absolute virtuoso performance, an absolutely gutsy performance from Yamamoto, who was just game. He was a monster. He was an absolute monster. He was a zombie. He could not, would not. He was just relentless. Being called in that many times after you had a complete game. The mileage on his arm. He could barely hold up the World Series MVP trophy, but he kept showing up. And the Blue Jays, he was the kryptonite. They just could not. Everybody else, relatively, they could handle. But Yamamoto came in and he just had their number. All right, it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful performance, pitching-wise, whatever-wise, in sports history from Yamamoto. He wins a well-deserved World Series MVP. Will Smith wins his 6th. By the way, he also hit the go-ahead home run here. His 6th World Series in a row, which is, that'll never happen. I mean, that's ridiculous. All right, just insane. I was going to say it never happened again. Maybe somebody wins 6 in a row, but 6 in a row on different teams, that's crazy. That's beyond me. I do want to give a shout out, though. Toronto, Vlad had an all-time playoff run, had a great World Series as well. Ernie Clement broke the hit record that Vlad, I think, also broke or tied. So, yeah, just insane performance from those two. But the Dodgers just would not be denied, man. They just would not be denied. It is a super team, and we are on the brink of a dynasty. And again, until somebody looks like they can beat them, I got the Dodgers again to three-peat. I'm going to be honest with you. Until those older guys fall off, which is there was some signs. Kershaw obviously is retiring. Mookie didn't play particularly well this season. I got the Dodgers. And even then, they got every top-tier Japanese player for the next 2 decades, at least. All right, you got Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Sasaki for those kids to look up to. Everybody from Japan is going to be a Dodgers fan. So, yeah, LA gets it done over Toronto in a thrilling, thrilling Game 7. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the NFL. All right, let's get to it. Lamar is back, baby. Lamar Jackson is back. Action Jackson is back in action, and he gets it done here against his hometown team. 28-6. It was easy. All right, I'm not going to say a lie to you. It was easy for Lamar. All right, 204, 4 touchdowns. He did what he did. It was literally the perfect, welcome back game for Lamar. All right, and now the Ravens have hope again. King Henry went for 119. And Miami cleaned house, except for Mike McDaniel following this game, as they were hopeless and quite clearly one of the worst teams in the league. But who's really surprised? I'm just interested to see if Waddle gets traded before the trade deadline. But yeah, Lamar's back. Baltimore might be back. We'll see. We will see. New England somehow manages to win this game. All right, somehow, some way. Shout out to the Pats, though, because they are, again, looking very, very dangerous. But somehow, some way, find a way to beat the Falcons here 24-23, because Drake London was unchained. Drake May did what he had to do, won this game, yet another great performance. I mean, it wasn't a great performance, but it was a solid performance for Drake. Like I said, did what he had to do, help his team win the game. Drake London, if you watch this game, or even watch Red Zone for this game, terrorizing. All right, the Pats are going to have him in their nightmares. When he is going up and just whooping Christian Gonzalez, one of the best quarterbacks on this planet, and giving him the business, play after play after play after play, that is frightening. That is frightening. He looked like he was at USC again, just bullying people. Drake May, any other circumstance, is the best Drake in that game. Unfortunately, Drake London was in that game. 9 receptions, 118, and a hat trick for London. A one-hander to clinch the hat trick and get the Falcons within a point of getting this done. But they did miss that extra point, which ends up being very, very costly. It was a great game, though. All right, it was a very, very good game. But by God, Drake London. All right, by God. But Pats got that W. All right, Pats got the W. Chargers took care of the Titans, as we've done with many of the Tennessee games this year. Nobody cares, okay? Chargers get it done 27-20. Nothing too crazy really happened here. by what you expected, all right, by what you can envision. San Fran took care of business against the Giants, who were just unfortunately hopeless. CMC had 173 total and 2 touchdowns. Dart did play a very good game, though. This was not on him, 247 and 3 touchdowns. But it just feels like the energy has been taken out of that New York franchise with Scat Neighbors and now Scat. They're just kind of reeling. But, it's good to see Dart continue to play well. He was, Rookie of the Month last week. We'll want to see that keep going if you're a Giants fan. But 49ers do what they do. Do we need to have a conversation about the Carolina Panthers? Do we need to have a conversation about the Carolina Panthers? I live here in Charlotte, and I'm confused. I'm confused. They are over 500. They're looking like they might be a playoff team. Like, we were like, okay, hypothetically, if certain things fell in place, maybe this could happen. But I didn't really think the Panthers were going to be this good. They just keep winning. I'm not even sure if they're good. I don't know. I do not know with this team. But they go into Lambeau, and they get a 16-13 win. Fitz is a 49-yard game winner. Rico Dowd needs to be the feature back. Now, he might be a little bit banged up. He looked a little banged up here, but still had 130 and 2 touchdowns. Pay the man. He is the running back. I'm sorry, Chuba. You either going to have to be that backup or you're going to have to get up out of CLT. All right? That's all I'm saying. Carolina. Bryce comes back, gets it done. They are looking... I do not know what to think about this Panthers team, but they are a lot better. This is not the same Panthers team we've been watching the past couple of years. All right? This is a different team. Canales might be cooking. Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. All right. Daniel Jones has been having such a good season. We've talked about it here. He's had a tremendous season. It was going to, he has to revert back to the Daniel Jones we knew, at some point. It had to happen. It happened in this game. All right, he had 5 turnovers. He had 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles. It was disgusting. Okay, it was horrible. Okay, he finally had that down game that we've seen him play countless times in New York. It happened here in Indianapolis. All right, against the Steelers, they feasted. And it honestly cost them the game because they only lost by a touchdown. This was a very winnable game for the Colts, but it ain't the end of the world. All right, it's not the end of the world. He just cannot do this ever again. But yeah, DJ, great season, but this was a classic Daniel Jones game. However, I do have to talk about some of these defensive standouts for the Steelers because they racked up some stat lines for you. Peyton Wilson, NC State grad, shout out to him. 14 tackles, 2 pass deflections, 1 pick. Joey Porter Jr. had 8 tackles, 1 sack, 4 pass deflections, and a pick. It's ridiculous. All right, some Madden. Okay, some absolute Madden stat lines for some of these Pittsburgh defenders. But Daniel Jones was just giving them out like Oprah. So that's how that went. Steelers get the W. Minnesota and JJ McCarthy got it. All right, some people got it, some people don't. JJ McCarthy got it. His stat line does not do him justice for the impact he had for the Vikings in this game. They are a different team. They have like a different aura. Not to be a glazer here. That was a lot of Gen Z material in one sentence. But, not to do all that, but it's just a different team. All right, it's just a different team. He had a hat trick in this game, by the way, 3 touchdowns for McCarthy. He's got like 6 in his first 8 games, TD-wise. Which, is great numbers. All right, great numbers. However, both defenses did apply some pressure to each of these quarterbacks to Goff and to McCarthy. That was the one set back to help keep them in check. Each had 5 sacks each. But Minnesota had enough. They just had enough. They stayed out in front of the Lions. They've been able to have these games where they've been able to. As good as the Lions and Campbell have been, the Vikings just tend to have that one game. And it's usually for some reason when the Vikings come to Detroit where they're just able to have their number. They're able to get it done, and that's what happened here. Credit where credit's due. J.J. McCarthy is back, and he just is a different team. All right, Minnesota's a different team with him at the helm. Denver walks off another team. This time it's the Houston Texans after Stroud got knocked out of this game on a very unfortunate it was a classic slide. Somebody died at the same time, hit him. It happens. It's unfortunate. I'm not going to go out and say, it happens. All right, it happens. Unfortunate for Houston because this was a winnable game. Or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Denver still got some type of voodoo, but that defense is legit. All right. Regardless of anything, we do know that Broncos defense is absolutely exactly what we thought it was going to be. And they get it done here. Lutz gets the game winner. Broncos roll. The best game of the week is going to be the Chicago-Cincinnati game. I don't care what happens Sunday night. I don't care what happens Monday night that we won't get to talk about. I don't care about what happens in the back half that we're about to talk about. This will be the best game of the week. There's absolutely no way any game tops this. This was insanity. Absolute insanity. Chicago was down. Or excuse me, no. Cincinnati was down 14 points with under 2 minutes to go in this game. In under a minute, they erased that and took the lead. And then, tied the game. And then Chicago goes down here and thinking we're just going to get a field goal, maybe walk it off. Williams, first off, Caleb, Superman, great scramble, gets him a little bit closer. They speed it up, yada, yada, yada. He goes, Colston Loveland playing a great game. Has his iconic moment of his career so far. Williams steps up in the pocket. That was an absolute laser. Loveland catches it. Safety for Cincinnati, playing way too deep, and then didn't wrap up, just tries to hit Loveland. He's a big body. He's been in the weight room, bounces off of it, and then just runs away from everybody else, which is why he was so highly regarded out of Michigan. It was insanity. Absolute insanity. Cincinnati did everything they could offensively to win this game. However, they do not have a functioning defense. And neither did the Bears in this game, but they had enough to win it. All right, Chicago, Caleb, 280, 4 touchdowns, and he had a receiving touchdown. DJ Moore going off on my fantasy bench brought a tear to my eye. I started Taylor. I did the double tight end stack and I paid for it. Hopefully it doesn't cost me in a week. But yeah, Caleb goes for 284 touchdowns. Manganai, Kyle, stepping up here. All right, the rookie, he had 176. Great game. Colston Loveland, like we said, had an iconic game. 6, 118, 2 tutties. Joe Flacco continues to be, I guess, elite Joe Flacco now that he's in Cincinnati. He had a 470-yard game, 4 touchdowns. I'm not counting that last pick against him because, what else was he going to do? T. Higgins had nearly as, remember how I was talking about Drake London earlier? T. Higgins had a very similar game. He was giving the Chicago Bears absolute hell all day long. 7 receptions, 121, and 2 touchdowns. Got banged up at the end. Hopefully he's okay. Chase had 6, 111. But like I said, T kind of stole the show there. And then Colston Loveland and Caleb Williams just making it happen. And the Bears find a way to win from the jaws of defeat. They find victory. And the Bengals once again find defeat from the jaws of victory. What a terrible, terrible team. Terrible, terrible team. They're going to have to blow that up, and I don't know how they do it because it's just such a sticky situation how that's blown up in their face. But you got to protect your quarterback, and things like this might not happen. But it is what it is. All right, shout out to Chicago winning game of the week. Now, we're back for the back half, and listen, it almost happened. Okay, I know I literally was just saying ain't nothing topping the Bears and the Bengals. It got close. We got very close. All right, we got very, very close. The Jaguars and the Raiders end up having a sleeper banger. All right, a sleeper banger. This is not a game I would have expected to be legitimately talking about this week, but here we are. All right, ends up going to OT. Jags are able to get it to OT, and they get the win here. All right, T-Law scores, and then the Raiders drive all the way down the field. All the way down the field, get the touchdown, right? We are locked up at 30-29. All you got to do is hit the extra point, keep it going. But the Raiders decided to go for glory. And that didn't pan out for them. All right, that didn't pan out for them. Now, I get it. All right, Raiders, what do they really have to lose? All right, they are not in playoff position. Nobody really expects anything from Vegas. So why not go for glory? It's not an awful decision. It's not an awful analytical decision. But I don't know if I'd have personally done it. But nonetheless, they go for glory. It doesn't pan out. Jaguars get the win. T-Law, not his cleanest game, but he did have 2 touchdowns. Or he did. Like I said, I think he did have 2 touchdowns rushing, but he had, of course, that go-ahead late. He came through in the clutch. Got to respect it. This, however, let's be honest, if we're not talking about Brock Bowers, who we're about to, this was the Cam Little game, all right? 3 for 3 on field goals, perfect from extra points. He had a 68-yarder. The longest field goal in NFL regular season history. Of course, he also holds the longest field goal in NFL history with the 70-yarder he hit during the preseason, but now he also has the legitimate record. So love that for Cam, all right, because he deserves to have it. The 70-yarder should count regardless, but now he's got both. All right, so Cam Little, strongest leg maybe ever. All right, now I know I am a Cowboys fan. We got Butter Aubrey, so we'll see. All right, Butter Aubrey might need to go for that 71. I'm just saying. But yeah, Cam gets that 68-yarder. Good for him. Gino played a really good game. He already had 284, 4 touchdowns. Did have that one interception. Bowers, though, as I mentioned before, welcome back. And boy, oh boy, did he reaffirm himself as arguably the best tight end in the game. 12 receptions, 127, and 3 touchdowns. He is a generational talent at that position. He is that guy. All right, no doubt about it. Bowers is him. However, the Raiders go for glory. Doesn't work out. Jags get a much-needed win, to be honest with you. A much-needed win. Especially with Trav being out for an elongated period of time. Rams take care of the Saints. No big surprise here. Stafford had 4 TDs. Kyron did his thing. Big story, of course, was Tyler Shugg making his first start. He looked like what you would expect Tyler Shugg to look like in his first career start. All right, I'm not going to go into deep with that. He ain't going to be the starting quarterback of the future for the Saints. We all know this. All right, Bills and the Chiefs, which has always been a headlining matchup for the past decade, with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes under the helm. And as this matchup tends to go in the regular season, the Bills win. All right, the Bills win 28-21. Josh was super duper efficient, 23 for 26 in this game, 273, 3 touchdowns, 2 of those rushing. James Cook had 114 yards on the ground. Dalton Kincaid had a big game, 6 receptions, 101, and a touchdown. And yeah, Chiefs ran into issues with the Buffalo Bills defense that they just could not overcome. Pat just started trying at the end of the game. I'm not going to lie. That was a complete arm punt with 4 minutes to go, which was fine, but just risky. They were taking a lot of unnecessary risks because I feel like they never really were comfortable with what was going on. And yeah, Bills beat the Chiefs again in the regular season, but as we know, none of this really matters in between these two teams unless it gets done in the playoffs. All right, until Josh is able to conquer Pat and get over that hump in the playoffs, we're all just going to be here like, well, nice to see, but, is what it is. And now, ladies and gentlemen, with that said, we have reached the Roundup. And with this Roundup, we are, of course, talking motorsport. We aren't talking about F1, though. Congratulations to Charles Leclerc on his engagement to Alexandra this past, or literally today, actually. I'm recording this on Sunday, so yeah, happened this morning. So congrats to them for that. But no, we are talking about NASCAR, and we're going all series here, all right? Because it's time to have a discussion about this horrific playoff format that nobody likes. Nobody likes, and we had 2 situations, not in the Cup Series, but we had 2 situations where it's the 2, as we've talked about on the show before, the 2 top young drivers in the sport, Connor Zilisch, Corey Heim, historically dominated. The 2 best seasons in each of their series history, in the Xfinity and the Truck Series, the greatest seasons ever. If they were under a season-long format for points, they would have won the championship weeks ago. It would be over. They have been historically dominant, to emphasize it as much as I can. I knew that one of them was not going to get the championship that they have alright won, to be honest with you. It was going to happen. It was just the way it was going to work out. Corey got it done, and he did win the Truck Series, so it worked out there. But I knew NASCAR's nightmare was going to happen, and it happened to the bigger star of the 2, and Connor Zilisch will be in the Cup Series next year. He finishes 3rd, and as Jesse Love won, Jesse Love is your Xfinity Series champion despite having nowhere near the numbers, having nowhere near the wins, the top 5, nowhere near the season that Connor Zilisch put together. The greatest in Xfinity history, except he's not the champion. It makes absolutely no sense. Logically, numerically, there's no way you can look at this format and think it makes any type of sense of this is how we're defining a champion in a season-long motorsport. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. NASCAR made an attempt to make their final race like a Super Bowl type event in their made-up mind, which, again, it does not work for racing. Your Super Bowl is Daytona, which happens to be the first race of the year. That's it. That's your big event. Your championship race, there's not going to be one. It depends on how the season goes. If it happens where there's 2 drivers duking it out, perfect, market it like that. But you can't make your final race a championship. It's not fair when you have a season-long format, because then nothing else matters. You can just skate into the playoffs, get lucky a few times, happen to make the championship 4, and then I just got to win one race, and I'm champion. Doesn't matter if I was the 10th best car all year. If I just opportunistically won at the right times, I'm the champion for that year. That makes no sense. Respectfully, even though Logano's a legend, didn't make sense when he won. And it doesn't make here when Jesse Love wins here in the Xfinity. Zilic got screwed. He got screwed. Out of a well-deserved, that entire team, because it's bigger than him really, if you think about the money involved. Whole team got screwed out of what they earned. So this seems to be because there's been a massive amount of outrage about this. And even today, Kyle Larson gets his second championship, which well-deserved. He also finished with most points, so it worked out for NASCAR's favor. But with a kind of restart, people feel away. Then he had the story this year. It's a lot of backlash. It's not a lot of good PR this week. It was not a good weekend for NASCAR. As much as a celebrity, Sydney Sweeney, this was a horrible weekend. A horrible weekend in terms of publicity for NASCAR. It was a dark mark on the sport. And yeah, I knew it was the most obvious thing to happen. You cannot there's not going to be a championship race. Sorry, you want to be like everybody else, but that's not how racing works. It's not. It should be either you can do like the chase like you did where you take the top 12 and then that's it. If you want to have a playoff, you need it for marketing reasons. And you can do it like that. That was closer to fair. Or you do what the people want, which is a season-long format, and whoever's the best driver each year wins the championship, which is how it should be. But I digress. Congratulations to Kyle Larson. Unfortunately, no disrespect to Jesse Love. I can't respect him as champion, so I'm not going to give him his best wishes, but I will respect the real champion, the people's champion, in Connor Zilic for, once again, the greatest season in Xfinity history. Same thing to Corey Heim. Hope he gets a Cup Series seat or an Xfinity Series seat. I know there's politics going on there with JGR, but, Heim, he's an outstanding talent, dominant, historic season in the Truck Series, regardless of how Matt Crafton feels about that series, though it does need some changes. I digress. But yeah, horrible weekend for NASCAR, but it was completely avoidable, and we all knew this was coming, and maybe it's a necessary evil. Kylian Mbappe continues to score. He scored a brace yesterday. Again, Arda Güler, all 6 of his assists. He's having a great season, a breakout season, all of them to Mbappe so far here in the Liga. And yeah, Real Madrid is flying. All right, they are absolutely flying. Okay, NHL is pretty much everything we talked about last week, though I got to give a shout out to Big Jack Eichel for having a great first month. He's off to a flying start. Might be in hard contention depending on how Vegas does. But yeah, we are off to the marks here in hockey, NBA. Nothing too crazy happening. Wemby is still on that timing, though the Spurs finally lost. So we will see. All right, we will see. But without further ado, for episode 274, hope you guys enjoyed. Let's get November started off with a bang. Ocho signing off.